I like to take a poll from a wide generation of people about recent fashion trends that we have experienced. Charlotte, what is one recent fashion trend you experienced growing up, or perhaps recently?
A fashion trend that I have experienced recently. I'm so into uniforms. I joined the military at 20. I'm now a zoo docent. You always see me in my uniform, so I'm not real trendy. I haven't experienced a whole lot. Sorry.
Espen, what about yourself?
Is that growing up or
Anytime.
anytime? Well, how about these, what do you call these, tight jeans?
Oh, yeah.
What's the term?
Skinny jeans.
Skinny jeans, that's it, thank you. That's a new one on me. Strange
I
one.
think that's more so slim fit rather than skinny jeans, but...
Okay.
Steve, yes?
So fashion trends pertaining to the clothing industry, actually. Of course, I had to give my 2 cents on this. Trends basically in the 50s and 60s. The fashion was originated by the British, the British culture, and they kept that fashion very restricted to certain patterns up to the late 70s, 80s. And in the late 80s, the Italians took over, actually, and because they're bored of the same, herringbones, the same houndstooth, and the same plaids and the patterns. And the Italians took over and started creating new designs. So since then, since the late 80s, we've been watching a lot of different variety in style and fashion and all. And the main difference between the British are very traditional in they're very conservative in their attire. And the difference between the British and the Americans are more adventurous in style. They're willing to explore, and they're willing to. Yeah. I mean, back in the day, on a single-breasted 2-button suit, a notch lapel is what would have gone. But now you're having, peak lapels, wide 3.5-inch peak lapels on a single-breasted with, side vents and all. So it's to British, this is atrocious. I mean, literally, it's a nightmare. But so that's the changes. That's the changes in the last couple of decades that we've been seeing. People are becoming more bold and more, willing to explore different changes in trends and fashion and styles and all. So. As a designer and stylist, that was my 2 cents on this.
Steve, thank you very much. Do I have to do a speech now?
Sorry.
That was awesome.
Well, among those flamboyant and I guess more so American-style fashion trends,
Yes.
I want to present to you today. If you could take a look at my socks below. Now, this is something I was introduced to about 6 months ago. At my office, there's a young man around my age, a year older roughly, who purchased, or actually his fiance's sister purchased him a sock subscription to where he gets 2 socks per month that are very, very fancy. Of course, I am behind the times, and just this past January for my birthday, my mother bought me 12 pairs of socks like this, actually. And I love them so much that I decided to go out and get another 12 pairs. So I have 24 of these. Of course, all different. But this is something I want to introduce to you today. We're going to talk about the history of socks, and then obviously ways you can step into the next era with this new fashion trend that I'm presenting. So to start out, socks, and this is, of course, early records, indicate that back in the 8th century BC, socks were made from matted animal hair. Seems kind of uncomfortable, but that was back in the day when they needed to use every single portion of the animal, including the hair. They would go and hunt the meat, and they needed to use the hair as well. Now, in 2nd century BC, the Romans started this habit of knitting socks. And of course, this took a bit more time, so it was often really a symbol of royalty. And we move on to the 5th century AD, and socks had evolved to something that they called plutees, I believe that's how you pronounce it. And they were worn by the royalty and the religious, so priests at the time, and they represented purity. And of course, as time moved on, in the late 1600s, the knitting machine came to be, and this, of course, the knitting machine made it more common to wear socks, and obviously people wore socks still here and there, but you didn't see people have many, many pairs of socks. Now, I would like to point to Louise. I saw her socks.
I didn't even.
And so, of course, the knitting machine made it easier for everyone to have socks. People have many different pairs of socks, ones that match their clothing. I'm sorry, mine don't match my clothing today. But in the, let's see what year that was. In 1938, nylon came to be, and this actually really made it much, much more lucrative, the production of socks and the wearing of socks, and people became much more creative, as you can see here. And of course today we have this new trend to where men and women go to work, and as a way to quote unquote stick it to the man, as one of my friends would put it, they buy some fancy socks and add that along to their professional attire. It makes for a fun way, it makes for a way to have fun at the office and also represent your character in otherwise ways you couldn't do so at the office. But I found it interesting when I was doing the research on this. A Wall Street Journal article said, "It was fun while it lasted, but wild argyle socks and hyper-striped hosiery are over. Style-conscious men are making a shift to low-key motifs and solid-colored socks in loose materials." I scoff at this because this article was written in April 2016. Obviously, I haven't heard about this trend until just recently, so my whole point is it's now just starting since I just heard about it. But among ways, and this is, I challenge you to all move in and step into the next era. And there's a couple different ways that you can go about getting new socks. You can obviously buy it in a bulk purchase. I believe I spent about $50 on, it was a bit more than $50, I think around $60 on about 24 pairs of socks from Amazon.com. Of course, there are also sock subscriptions varying from $10 to $150. And I challenge you all. I know I saw a few different pairs of fancy socks today. Anyone want to show? Yeah.
Yoga socks.
But I challenge you all to step into the next era and find a great, fun way to maintain your professional character. Thank you.